Assalamu alaikum students. The poem that we'd be doing today is The Silken Tent by Robert Frost. So Robert Frost, also known as Robert Lee Frost, was born on March the 26th, 1874, and he died in January 29th, 1963. Predominantly an American poet, even though his earlier works were published in England, but later on, even in the United States, most of his works were published. And one thing that he was very, very popular for was his realistic depiction of rural life or village life. Frost wrote a different sort of poems, out of which his short poems and long poems are both equally popular. And some of his short poems are as short as just two stanzas or even a single stanza, but the long ones also are so long that they comprise up to many, many pages in a book. Robert Frost was predominantly known for his use of symbolic language in poetry, and he used multiple metaphors in his poetry. And he covered a wide variety of subjects. Some of the predominant subjects or themes that we find in his poetry relate to nature and humanity. Then he talks a lot about everyday life, the human contact with the natural world, the love that exists between human beings, the sense of isolation human beings can feel, and the feelings accompanied by a sense of isolation, the struggles that human beings go through in their life journey, and then, of course, nature also being a predominant theme in his poetry. This particular poem that we'd be doing today, The Silken Tent, falls under the genre of a sonnet. It is a sonnet, and sonnet being a very popular classical form of writing poetry, and a lot of poets have employed this method in order to express their views regarding poetry. A sonnet, girls, is a 14-line poem, and it is written in the specific meter, which is known as the iambic pentameter. And within the domain of the iambic pentameter, there are different kinds of rhyme schemes that you can employ, but there's certain specific way in which you are supposed to write a sonnet, so that, adhering to that tightly structured form, a sonnet is written. And then again, sonnet derives its name from the Italian word sonetto, which means a little song, or just simply a song. So why it's called a little song is because it's a short poem. A sonnet is a short poem which comprises only of 14 lines. So coming to the text of The Silken Tent, what is very important here is, and again, this particular poem is a short poem. It's a sonnet comprised of 14 lines. In this particular poem, the silken tent has been compared to a woman. A lot of people feel that, Robert Frost is trying to compare his beloved to a silken tent in this particular poem. So he starts off with, she is as in a field a silken tent. At midday when the sunny summer breeze has dried the dew, and all its ropes relent, so that in guise it gently sways at ease. So he's saying that she, that is his beloved, is like a silken tent, and at midday, that is almost in the around 12 o'clock in the daytime, she sways or she moves back and forth in the sunny summer breeze, breeze being the little sort of air that goes around the tent. And he's saying that the ropes, which were wet with dew, dew means that little water that sort of collects on the grass and on the ropes, and on other things at night during the times, the little water that collects, that's called dew, and that sort of makes the ropes a little tight. So he's saying when it is the ropes are dried and that water is dried, the ropes sort of become more flexible, and because of that, it is easier for the tent to move back and forth in the summer breeze. So he's saying that my beloved is like a tent that sways back and forth in the summer breeze, and its supporting central cedar pole, that is its pinnacle to heavenward. So he's saying that what holds the tent together is this one central pole. Cedar is a specific kind of wood that he is referring to, and he's saying what holds the tent together is the central cedar pole. Now here the central cedar pole stands for that support system of a woman. And in case of this poem, maybe the central support system of the beloved of uh, the poet. It could be her the lover of the lady, or it could be the husband, or any other strong structure in the life of a woman that holds it together. So the tent stands for a woman, a strong woman, a free woman, and the cedar pole is that central structure that gives it strength, that in its pinnacle to heavenward and signifies the sureness of the soul. And saying it, this is this support system, it is this pole that helps the tent stand straight and heavenward and gives that sense of assurity to the soul of the woman. So the sureness of her soul, of course, comes from within her, but what gives her sureness of her soul and what makes her stand upright is also the support system that she has around her. And he says that it is not one single cord that holds on to this woman. Cord means, you know, some sort of thread or rope that holds on to the tent. So here it means, if you look at it on the symbolic level, it's actually referring to the different sort of bonds that a woman has in her life, whether it's the children, her husband, her parents, etc. So saying it is not one single cord that she has been tied to, but is loosely bound by countless silken ties of love and thought. So he's saying it's not one bond that she is in. She has the bonds of her children, her husband, and a lot of other bonds of love and thought. Could be her friends, her sisters, her siblings, anybody. So he says the life of a woman is bonded by so many relationships of love and thought. And she has to balance each one of these relationships one way or the other. To everything on earth, the compass round, and only by one's going slightly taut in the capriciousness of summer air is of the slightest bondage made aware. But he's saying, but despite all these bondages, every now and then, when the summer air stirs the tent, it tries to move here and there, yet when it does try to go here and there, the center of the existence of a woman, the bonds tell her that no, she can only sort of be flexible and move here and there to a certain extent, because the center of her existence depends on the relationships of love that she has around her, the relationships of her parents, her husband, her children, and whatever relationships that she exists in. Coming to a sort of detailed study of this poem. In the poem, The Silken Tent, the poet is comparing the tent with the woman he loved. And the summer breeze stirs the tent and has dried the dew. And when the dew has dried, the tent becomes tight, and all its rope also become loose, and the ropes can easily move back and forth. Something that I've talked about even before, that the silken tent is the tent that sways easily, yet it is bonded through the ropes and through certain other things as well. And similarly, just like the silken tent can move here and there, and yet it can't sort of completely displace itself, a woman is also free from her domestic duties. Once she is done with that, she can go back and forth here and there. However, the cedar pole, the central pole, or the underlying strength of hers that keeps her erect is that support system that she has, and that is what gives her the sureness of her soul. And like the supporting pole of the tent, her soul is also reliable. And just as the tent is tied with so many ropes, similarly, a woman is also tied with so many relationships of love and thought. The summer air makes the tent feel that it is bond, and similarly, her marriage also reminds her that she is bond with someone, and there is only to a certain extent that she can exercise her freedom of choice. In the poem, the bondage means the condition of being under some power of influence. It also refers to her marriage vows to her husband, because then again, when you're in a certain bond, you are bonded by a variety of religious, social, and legal obligations. And of course, a strong woman can exercise her freedom of choice, but then again, there is always a certain boundary to it, which the poet is talking about in this particular poem. The Silken Tent, Girls, is a love poem that Frost wrote for Morrison, Morrison being the beloved of Robert Frost. And it is very sensual, that is, the poem appeals to the senses in multiple ways. The description is very sort of apt, wherein the metaphor of the tent has been compared to that of a woman. And it goes on to show that how a woman balances all her love obligations. This particular poem is a seamless sonnet, a very beautiful sonnet, wherein Morrison, or the beloved of the poet, has been compared to a tent that is stirred by the summer breeze, and it is bonded or is tied down not by just one single rope or cord, but it is loosely tied down by silken ties of love and thought. Now, the fact that the poet uses the word silken tie refers to the fact that the ties that she has of love and thought are not something that have been sort of enforced on her. Those are the ties that she's probably bought onto herself. She wants to be tied to these threads of silk because they are the relationships of love and thought, though the poem may simply signify Morrison's generally rich engagement with the world. So it shows that a woman who is a strong woman is involved with the world. She is involved with her social obligations, but at the same time, she has a dense sense of duty to her domestic chores as well. And what the poet is trying to say, that it can move here and there in the summer breeze, trying to enjoy life, the little that she can, yet the center point of her existence is the little cedar pole, her life, which is bonded by her relationships of love and thought through her children, through her husband, and through her house. The poet sort of conveys in this poem the sense of woman's character that is involved in a number of duties, like I've mentioned before. A woman is free like the summer, yet she is confined also through her role as a wife and a mother. She is strong and she knows what she wants in life, and she tries to do the little adventure that she can. Yet her love and thoughtfulness for others, for her children, her family, etc., shows clearly, and that remains her priority. The silken tent is a metaphor that compares a woman that has a variety of roles in her life, and it compares that with a tent in a multitude of ways. This is all about Silken Tent, girls. I hope I've been able to make the thought of the poem clear.